clip my wings so I wouldn't fly. Made damn sure I didn't get too high. There was something calling me in the sky.
Sunday Songwriters. This episode, I'm joined by Phillip-Michael Scales, who has been to the Spirit Room for a couple of shows already. Season 1 and then season 3, back-to-back years, I think or not back-to-back years, but about a year and a half apart. Done a couple of shows in the Spirit Room already, and I'm excited to catch up with you, hear about what's been going on, and it sounds like you're on a little bit of a respite at home for a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I'm chilling for a little minute, man. Yeah, it's been good. It's been like kind of a whirlwind of years, where I was just kind of going, and now I'm kind of able to sit and process and figure out kind of my next moves,
So you, I know you were on the road a lot in 25. You were here in 25. What was the year like? Was it a lot of shows for you? Was it about the normal amount? What all did you get done in 25 since we're here in January 26 now?
I think it was like a solid amount of shows for sure. I mean, it was nice that it was consistent. It was consistently the band. There were a couple, solo shows one off, but I think what gets wild as a solo artist is that if you don't have a set band, and actually this year I also had a set band too, which was pretty nice. I had my guys up in Chicago and Milwaukee, so I'm in Nashville at the moment. So having those guys there has been really helpful to sort of be able to lock in and just like we've got a gig in Las Vegas next month, and so it's cool to be able to kind of just hop in, get it done, and not have to worry about, do they know the part, can they finding a drummer, everybody's kind of just knows what the deal is, so it's a lot more comfortable to kind of just lock in. So that was a great part about 2025. Got on TikTok in 2025, and that's been really cool. And I know it sounds silly, man. There were so many people who were I had a manager once who was just like, you don't need to worry about TikTok, blah, 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 blah. And then, I sold out a show, I think, on this tour, with just TikTok and mentioning Cleveland and all that stuff. So, it's a bit of a video game, but, it was a major breakthrough. I think that as times have gotten more economically tight for everyone, the smaller touring artists feel it the most, I would say, squeezing out, trying to figure out is this a viable thing? What do we need to do? And so, you got to kind of get smart about what you're doing,
Yeah, I think it's great. We talked about the algorithms in a little bit and when you were here in Ohio earlier this year of using TikTok specifically. And
Sure.
One of the strangest things is I've been in this a while. MySpace was this amazing tool that came out, and then social media just developed so rapidly. And I keep thinking, if my teenage kids or middle school kids, my children can get 20,000 views on TikTok, then I should be able to sell some tickets if I can figure it out. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. TikTok's crazy because it's not the it's the timeline is just all merged, right? There's no timeline. It's just everything is sort of omnipresent and so if you dig on something, it might show you a video from 2 years ago, which I think makes it a little tougher for promotion sometimes, but yeah, it's a wild west. I mean, I guess in a couple days, it's supposed to get bought by people and algorithms change or whatever. But yeah, for now, you just kind of got to embrace where it's at. And that's always what I've tried to do, is just kind of embrace whatever is and whatever is happening. I think that the old model of tour and just keep going on the road is kind of dead. It's you really have to look at your demand. You really have to figure out where are your fans, you have to collect them. It's a total process. So I'm actually independent totally on my team now. So it's been the first time I've had managers sort of interspersed over the years, but I think it ends up being better on sort of my side of things, just in terms of that.
So when you say you're independent, you mean you're handling your own booking? Everything
at the moment, between booking agents. But at the moment I'm kind of handling everything.
All right. That's that can be a lot. It could be a lot.
It can be a lot, but I think it also causes you to focus because you're only one person. So what then becomes the most important thing, Like
Right.
what then becomes like, what are you actually trying to achieve? Are you trying to do 100 shows in a year? And if you are trying to do 100 shows in a year, like, why are you trying to do 100 shows in a year? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing if the 100 shows are like, it's like, can you make the same amount of money in 50 shows? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those are kind of the bigger questions that I'm kind of asking. So.
Yeah, that's I kind of a reevaluation of strategy or and interest, right? As an artist, I mean,
Definitely.
it's your livelihood. You're out there on the road a lot, so you want to make sure that you're being as efficient as you can with your travel, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and you know, something that I've been more aware of recently, the older I get, is the physical and mental health of it of being an
Energy,
artist.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
when I was in and out of vans and unloading the trailer, I was 22, 23. So I wasn't that real worried about it. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't feel like I needed sleep. But now,
Sure. And
uh,
now yeah.
it's like,
Now I hit that sleep mask in the hotel rooms and stuff.
right.
I'm like, oh wait, it turns out like I'm just a nocturnal creature, and like sunlight is awful for trying to sleep.
Yeah,
I'm like the antithesis of what we were designed for.
I'm hearing a lot more artists when I talk to a lot more artists in person. I hear that a lot more. I'm taking care of myself and in the 90s, 80s and 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that just was not the
Yeah,
case.
right. They were uppers for that, and they were downers for
Right?
that.
Like, how much can I cram in?
Yeah.
There was a question I wanted to go back to. You're talking about how many shows you were doing, and the efficiencies. Man, I lost it.
Yeah, no, I did. I think I did 75 one year or last year. I think I probably did 75 last year, maybe 75 the year before. So I think honestly, man, if I had to give artists like advice, I would say it's more about like momentum, right? Like Spotify's algorithm, like your monthly listeners, all that stuff. It's like every 6 to 8 weeks, put something out. Unfortunately, so whether that looks like you recorded an entire album and like you're dripping it out, it's like the time frame seems like it's sort of similar when you're putting music out, but it's like if you don't drip out your release a little bit, you're kind of like, okay, cool, here's 12 songs, and then you've spent all that money on those 12 songs, but algorithmically they're kind of just like, all right, like what's next,
So that the old model of here's the album, now we're gonna hit the road and tour behind that album. We're gonna play those 12 songs, and we're gonna play 6 of the old songs, and then we're gonna go home and we're gonna record another album, then we're gonna go out and do it again. It just doesn't work like that anymore.
I think the way it works, I'm not completely sure, but my guess would be that you put out songs in an album format, but you just drip them out one by one, and then at the end it's the album, right? So then you can tour, and then you're like, okay guys, here's the album, and I guess the whole time you're doing it, you're trying to figure out whether or not, like, you're basically like trying to make more music in the interim, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of, do you find that that you write when you say, speaking of making more music in the interim, do you find that
Yeah.
you write more when you're on the road or when you're stationary?
I think I probably write a little bit more when I'm stationary, just because I have more things to do, on the road. Like on the road, it's like I'm driving and I'm doing logistics and I'm making sure, folks are where they need to be, and I'm making sure the shows are promoted and all that stuff. And so I think that, when I'm home, I have a little bit more brain space to kind of sit down and like get in the groove and really like do it. 'Cause a lot of my songwriting just kind of requires me to like sit, like just like noodle around until you find something, and
Right.
so when you're on the road, I wrote a little bit on the road this summer, but it's like when you're on the road, you don't really have as much downtime as maybe you would hope for, or useful downtime, right? It's like, am I exhausted? Do I need to like catch up on life? Do I need to like hit the gym? Do I need, like, there's so much stuff. So I think in a world where maybe I was like super in the groove of writing all the time, I think I could probably keep up the facility, because it's all about momentum, right? Like, it's like if you keep up your momentum of writing, then you end up being in a better spot.
Cool. I found in the limited traveling that I did and playing,
Mm-hmm.
I found that I got the inspiration. I would see the stories. I would talk to somebody, because that was what would always drive me to write was a relation to somebody in a conversation or hearing some kind of story,
Sure.
and then I would collect that in some kind of journal type, and then come back and use the downtime to
Definitely.
piece it
Give
all
me two
together.
seconds. I'm gonna grab a stand real quick.
Yep.
Just wanted to get my angle a little higher. Yeah, man, I think you're totally right. St. Vincent has a really cool thing about that. She says they asked her way, 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 way back. They were like, "Do you write on tour?" And she was just like, "I don't write, but I collect twigs, and then I build a nest when I get home." And so I definitely do that. I definitely write, and I'll just have like ideas, or a line will come to me, or whatever it is, and then I'll put it down on like a voice memo, or I'll put it in a little pile of notes. And
Mhm.
so the cool thing about that too is in Nashville there's a lot of co-writing culture, which I like. And so it's like when you get into a session, sometimes folks will want to sort of be like, "Oh, it's a co-write, so like we're gonna knock a song out in 3 hours, 4 hours," and like it's cool, it's definitely cool. There's times where I feel like songs can be like an hour or two away from being great,
Yeah.
but like the timer's kind of up and everyone's just sort of like, "Oh, it's a quantity game, let's keep going." But what I've found is sort of my antidote to that is starting with lines that I've found in my phone, or melodies or things like that, because that way I'm already drawn to it, as
Mhm.
opposed to sort of being like, "It's a Thursday and here we are with like, I wrote this riff this morning just because we had a writing session," and you're just like, "Oh man," like, like
Yeah.
that. To me as a singer songwriter, I guess that's what I am at heart, or a sinner songwriter, I guess. But to me, like that's my that's my heart and soul, So if I'm singing something, just sort of be like her hair in the air over there, like just come on, bro. Come on, bro. I'm trying to win every game. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I mean, there's a yeah. I mean, when you're trying to put stuff in that formula, right? What beats per minute is gonna get the most, create the most energy, gonna get the best
Sure.
radio play.
Right.
Is it what can we cram into 3 minutes and 15 seconds? Uh, chorus, verse, chorus. Do we start with a chorus? Do we start with a hook? And then you know what I mean? All of that stuff.
Sure,
Like,
sure. But okay, so I'm gonna counteract that idea real quick, because I do think that there are some. I think when you're doing it for the outcome of commerce, right, is like not necessarily the best move. And if you're sitting around with four people trying to be like, "We're going to make a hit," like you got to care about some shit. You know what I mean? Like you got to care about it. Like people who think that like Max Martin, one of the biggest pop producers of all time, or Mark Ronson or Bruno Mars, like people are like, "Nah, let's just like, write a cheap pop song and like, cash in." And it's like, do you know how hard that is? Like those dudes love pop music. Like Max Martin loves pop music. Bruno Mars loves pop music. Like they are thinking about this 24/7, and it's not just like, "Oh yeah, baby, baby, baby," la la la. Like they're in it, Kanye West, oof. He was known for being in the studio and being like, "Okay, what is the tempo that makes somebody's head nod?" So
yeah.
I will definitely on my ADHD trains run that direction too, of sort of like the science of what makes more people resonate,
Yeah.
And I think my goal might just be to be like, how do I write the best song possible that's as accessible to people as possible, but like still make it cool.
So there's a place for all of it, right? There's a place for that formula.
Definitely.
And there's a lot of songs that take Nashville. I think there's a lot of pop country songs that were not pop country songs when they were written,
Sure,
right? That
sure.
writer, it wound up in some writer's room, it wound up in some group write or some studio session where it went like, "Hey, let's take that up 15 clicks or 20
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
clicks."
yeah. Yeah.
And then we're gonna cut out this weird bridge and we're just gonna keep it. And then it turned into Achy Breaky Heart or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Sure, sure.
who knows?
Well, I
And
mean, my classic stance on this has been that like songs are people and genres are clothes. And your goal is to make the most beautiful person you can. And that's why Stevie Wonder's version of We Can Work It Out isn't
Right.
as amazing as, you know, the Beatles version of We Can Work It Out, which is why Al Green's I Want to Hold Your Hand is just as awesome as, you know, the Beatles' I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's like, if you make a good enough song, you know, cool, put it in whatever you want, you know?
Right.
Whereas, you know, some folks out there only look good in t-shirts and jeans. You know what I'm saying? Which is cool. You know, there's some songs that are like vibey. And I think like really for me, the holy grail right now for songs is like, how do you write a song that like only you can write? And I think that sometimes with group writes, you sort of iron out all the kinks that might come with, you know, a writer. Like,
Yeah. Or the lanes you might get stuck in a lane, or you might get stuck in. And
yeah. Well, because it's like when you're an artist and you're writing, you have somebody like Tyler the Creator or Haley Williams, or, you know, the list goes on, where you're like, okay, that kind of sounds weird, but it's like, that's why we love Tyler the Creator. You know, that's why we love Anthony Kiedis. That's why we love these different cats who have like their own. That's the way they would say it, right? And there's no counsel in the room being like, well, is that really relatable, or should it be, you know, a Coca-Cola instead of, you know, drinking like a Faygo pop, right? Where it's like, in Detroit, Faygo's a drink, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Faygo's a soda that only is sold in Detroit. And so it's like, if you reference Faygo, you may lose a lot of people, but you're also like hardcore gaining all the people who know Faygo. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And so you're almost making like a super fan tribe. There was a podcast called Bodega Boys that turned into a television show called Jesus and Miro. And they were talking about like specifically stuff in the Bronx. And they were talking about like pop culture, but all through a lens of like, you know, the Bronx. And even though I was in Chicago and Nashville and didn't know much about the Bronx, the whole world kind of rallied around this world where we started understanding like this Bronx culture. So I think sometimes to really hone in on whatever like is true to you, you know, if you believe it, I think the audience will go with you.
Yeah. It's funny that you use the beverage reference, because a couple weeks ago I fell in love with a Lake Street Dive song that I discovered called 25, and it talks about drinking affogatos. Have you ever heard? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what affogatos are.
I had no idea either. I was
Sure.
did she say avocados? What?
Sure.
So I looked it up, and it's like an Italian aperitif, like a after dinner caramel drink.
Cool.
Yeah, and it completely changed. It happened to hit my algorithm on Amazon
Sure.
Music,
Yeah.
and that one word not just the one word. The one word stopped me in my tracks. I mean, I really
Sure.
like the song, but so I say that to say your point is pretty incredible, because it just happened to me 2 weeks ago.
Sure. And then like, and when you go to Italy, you are damn sure gonna try an affogato,
Right,
just to like, you know.
Like
Exactly.
Where did they have it? Where can I find it? Is it
Sure,
can I find it
sure.
stateside?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I think about, you know, Connor Oberst, Bright Eyes, when he wrote that song Lua, and he said, I know that it is freezing, but I think it's time to walk. I keep waving at the taxis. They keep turning their lights off. And when I heard that line, it was like every time I was in Boston, but every time I was in New York and saw cabs, or when I was in Boston or any major city, like, and it was cold outside, I was always thinking about that song, you know? So it's like, I think there's a little bit of like, in songwriting, there's a little bit of like attention necessary and attention, like it's kind of an attention game, you know, not just because like our attention spans are crap now, but it's like, what's going to keep you, like what keeps the human brain like engaged in a song, you know? So is it like a line that makes you go, wait, what? You know? Or is it a line, or is it like a word where you're just like, huh, that's strange? And like, I don't know, songs are like part magic, part magic, part real. You know what I mean? So like for me, I'll listen to a song and like be like, oh man, that's some deep shit, or like whatever. And then like Jeff Tweedy's just like, I was mumbling words and,
It just came
I'm
out.
an American aquarium drinker kind of came out, and it just, I don't know, it sounded cool. I assassin down the avenue, and we're like, yeah, that's some deep stuff. And he's just like,
No, it wasn't.
no, it wasn't. Or sometimes you stumble across something cool and you write around that idea,
Right.
So that's been my experience. You play drums too, right?
Yeah. I'm originally a drummer. Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, man.
That was what I went to college to do, and I did a lot of it, and I should get back to it. I need to get some more physical exercise in my life, and I think that's
There you
probably
go.
what I should go back to.
Nice. Yeah, man.
Um,
Hop in the garage.
yeah, yeah, I've got plenty of basement room for it.
Sure.
So we just talked about geography or scenes and songs a little bit, kind of that reference. I want to talk about where you come from. You originally from Chicago, correct?
Originally from Michigan,
Originally from Michigan.
despite the Chicago flag back there.
So
Back there.
there's a
back
Chicago there's a Chicago relation, I guess.
there. For sure. Yeah, I lived
tell
there
me
for
what-
12 years.
Okay.
I started in Michigan, man. I started in Michigan. I was there for 18 years. My family was like, around for Motown, lived in Detroit, all that stuff. So they went to all that. So there was always music in the house. My aunt went to a lot of blues concerts in the 70s and stuff like that. So she ended up being, super close with B.B. King. He ended up, I met him a million times, and he called me his nephew. I called him my uncle. That was kind of just our relationship. And, it was way more of a grandpa grandson, how do we make each other laugh with dirty jokes, as opposed to like, this is how you bend a note, and I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. So yeah, that was kind of like my upbringing. And then I went to Berkeley in Boston, learned a bunch about music, and then I went straight to Chicago and got in a van and started touring and waiting tables and all that stuff, and eventually became a full-time musician, and then eventually became a full-time artist. So, that's kind of been my thing. Did a little bit of time in LA. Currently been in Nashville for the past 6 years. And, yeah, man, it's been cool. It's funny because I've traveled so much and I've lived so many places, and I feel like I'm bad at directions, but I think it's just like the wear and tear from downloading so many maps in my brain of just being like, oh yeah, that's there, isn't it? Or that, like, it's like, you can't memorize like your neighborhood in LA and in Chicago and in Michigan and in, Nashville. Like, your brain's gotta like kind of chill. But yeah, man, that's kind of been my traveling story.
So Nashville for the last 6 years. I think it's
Yeah.
funny. I've met a lot more people since I started promoting the series and running the series who live in Nashville, and
Yeah.
I grew up in the South, so I spent some time in Nashville, and I'll say, I'll ask them about an area, and they're like, I don't know. Like, have you been across town? But I think it's gotten to the point size wise that you may not you may
Yeah.
not go to all four
Yeah,
corners.
I mean, I kind of chill in East Nashville. That's kind of where I hang for the most part. So, I mean, I may go to a Predators game or may go see somebody at Bridgestone downtown, but like, maybe I'll visit somebody in Germantown. But like, on the whole, I'm usually pretty much in Nashville proper.
Awesome. So you mentioned earlier that you have a gig in Vegas this year.
Yeah.
What's 2026 look like, and what is that gig? You said you were doing your own booking now? How does that kind of stuff come in?
I have that's from the previous agent. So I had a couple things that are still kind of there. So the next sort of phase of booking is between me and, whoever sort of ends up booking me next. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't booked my own shows in quite some time, like usually that's the core that kind of helps out the most. I find my skills are more so in management, in terms of like the broader plan, the branding, the logistics, the sort of keeping things sort of afloat that way. But, I mean, right now I'm doing something kind of interesting, at least interesting to me, is like really just trying to sum up demand, and figure out like where, like I've played so many shows, I've been so many places, I've opened tours cross country 3 times, with different artists. And so it's like, let's collect all these fans, because like everyone's like, oh, get your email list. And it's like, yeah, you can get an email list. And like, but once you're at a show and you're like, hey, make sure to sign up for my email list, people are like, yeah, I'll just take the CD. Like they're not really trying to give up their information, not because they don't like you, but because like, it's another email in their inbox, and like, you just hear the word email and you're like, you think either work or, you know, like somebody's trying to sell you something or, you know, whatever. So, yeah, man, it's just about finding demand and figuring out where folks are. I've got a lot of like, enthusiasm from different pockets of TikTok, and so just figuring out, all right, cool. Like I know we'll hit the Midwest, and I know we'll hit probably, you know, parts of the East Coast and stuff. But yeah, it's just about figuring out where the demand is, because, you know, once you figure out the demand, then you go book the show, then the show goes well, and you can build off that. You know, that's kind of the main effort.
It's interesting that you mentioned the marketing and the management side, because when I started the Sunday Songwriters series, when I was starting
Yeah.
to curate and figure out how to book who I wanted in season one, you were a part of that. You were I think the third show we ever did. And the way I found you
Yeah.
is I modeled what I do after Eddie's Attic, which is kind of where I
Sure.
grew up in Decatur, Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I literally went to their website and I
Sure.
started looking at who's playing here. And the term dive bar soul in your description on their
Yeah.
website, I said, what is that? And so
Hell
I
yeah.
went straight to YouTube, and like 24 clicks in, I was like, I want that. So that's how that happened. So that dive bar soul branding,
Thanks, man.
that you developed. I mean, that's probably what, 3 years now. I don't know how long did you use that? Or
I started Dive Bar Soul in probably 2017.
okay, so
Probably.
yeah,
Yeah, probably 2017, something like that. So, yeah, man, I mean, it's just like trying to figure out a way to like categorize what you do, you know?
yeah,
And I think that like I spent a lot of time in dive bars in Chicago, and I think there's like sort of a common everyman sort of like I don't know, level playing field in a dive bar. You know what I
yeah.
mean? There's not sort of like a VIP entrance, and there's not this and there's not that. And, you know, you wax philosophic and you fall in love, and you know, like there's just so many different things that kind of happen. It's almost like a common ground meeting place. And I feel like that's what my songs are, you know, is like, how do we talk about, how do we talk about it? But
Yeah.
it's funny when you're like, I went to Eddie's Attic because somebody said the other day, they were like, yeah, some of my best ideas came from other people.
Well, we've talked about this before, but I loved the entire premise of that venue. That was the first listening room that I'd ever been to.
Sure.
Um, when I was in college, and I wanted, I wanted that for myself, and I wanted to create that for artists, and so that's how it happened. But
Yeah, man. Listening room culture is like huge, you know,
yeah,
because I think honestly, curation is always going to win. You know, curation's always going to win because people don't have people don't know. How am I supposed to know what to listen to? You know what I mean? Like there's 85 billion songs being uploaded to Spotify daily, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you should know, you know, like where do you start? You're just like, I guess I'll listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You
yeah,
know what I mean? So I think that's something that people don't, you know, realize is like, it's cool that there's music everywhere, but like we're just so inundated with things, like we don't necessarily have a reason to listen. And so I think that, you know, your average person who's just going and being like, where do I go see music? Who should I check out? What's popular? What's cool? It's like, you know, the coolest thing is that you bring in all these artists that your people, you know, you've created this space, you've created this community, and now people trust you, and you bring in these musical acts, and all of a sudden people are like, oh wait, I can like talk to this person, you
yeah.
know, like I can interact with this person. Like that's
Mhm.
really cool. You know, I can, you know, be a part of the beginning of their story.
Yeah, or somewhere in their story, or really get to understand, that's one of the coolest things about that small venue feel, and the type of personalities uh, like yourself and other artists, songwriters that are on the road is I think you generally want to understand why people are drawn to what you're doing, right? You want to
Sure.
be able to talk to them, and it's kind of that growing and evolving, and this is what happened last night. So I'm gonna take what I heard and try to put that into this show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Or
think
like that didn't work at all last night. And here, you know,
I was trying the
and
positive spin on it, but
right, right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I love touring because I come from a theater background. So
okay,
like, to me, what's interesting is the craftsmanship and the repetition, right? Like you're cooking from scratch every night. And so as a result, I saw Hamilton was really popular when I was in Chicago last, and they had a lottery for $10 tickets, right? And so I would enter the lottery with like 17 emails and like usually get like $10 tickets, right? But the cool thing is like if you start at the beginning of the run and then you continue watching later, a couple months later, like the show evolves and people's like something like they catch a thing together, or like they find out something new about this character. And like, that's why I think live theater is always so interesting to me, is because you make a show, but like even within the show, things are changing.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a similar thing with tour, is like you find the beats of your show, but at the same time, much like a stand-up, things evolve and then like become better, whereas like you just make it at home and then present it to the world. It's like, kind of a pain. Like it's like night one of tour, you don't really know what it is yet. You know what I mean?
I think when when you came to the Spirit Room, it was night one of a tour the first time you came.
Yeah.
Because you did a turnaround show that day. You did 2 back-to-back shows, and that early show was, I think, the first leg of the tour.
Yeah,
just come down from
man.
Chicago. I talked a little bit about that with Grady Spencer in an earlier episode.
Sure.
About how songs might evolve, or how the show actually evolves and over time, and you find out what works and what doesn't work. And theater, you learn where we don't need to put a laugh break there because they're not going to laugh at that.
Sure.
And then a week later, they laugh at it, and you're like, wait a minute.
Right.
Those 300 people did not think that was funny. Sure.
Well, I think the thing is that like it's a living, breathing thing that requires the audience.
Right.
Like it requires an audience. You can make as much as you want in your room, but like even just if I play a demo for someone in like, somebody stops by, I play a demo for them, the act of me sitting there and them watching changes my perception of the song.
Or pieces and parts of the song, or
because it's like now you have an audience and you're just like you're viewing it with their filters as well. Whereas I think as a songwriter at this point, a bit of a producer, I have friends in the circle I can play stuff for who they're like, okay, I can look at these studs and framing and see what you're doing. And then there's other people who are like, you might want to put some drywall up. Yes. Duh. So I think that, when you play it for somebody though, and you're looking at what they're looking at, it's almost like you take on their eyes a little bit. So
that's awesome.
Definitely.
Philip, we're going to run out of time here in a few minutes.
Sure.
I don't want to, but I have a question that I'm going to try something new. I'm going to ask, I'm going to add a question that has really nothing to do with music.
Perfect.
And I'm going to try to insert this in the future podcast and see what comes up. But if you were to be called on to give a 20-minute presentation about something that has nothing to do with music, and you had less than an hour to prepare for it, what would you be able to go on stage or in front of an audience and talk about for half an hour?
Oh man. For half an hour
or 15 minutes. I don't know. What would you be able to...
No, I mean, you were talking to the guy who has a lot of interests, I mean, I feel like I could go into branding for a really long time. I feel like I could go into business. Like my whole life is rabbit holes, dude. You kidding me? My whole life is rabbit holes. But something like completely left field, completely has nothing to do with, I would say I could probably go into like NBA basketball pretty deep.
Okay.
That might be a space that I could definitely chill in. I think comedy would definitely be another space I could chill in. Cooking could definitely be a space I chill in. Yeah. Yeah. What about you?
Oh, we're very kindred spirits. I could talk about college football for hours.
Okay.
I am very passionate about cooking.
Okay.
I'm a race fan, which is I grew up in the South,
like
so I
NASCAR stuff or
not so much NASCAR. More specifically, I'm a dirt track.
But are we talking
fan.
about cars?
Yeah, cars.
Okay, I didn't know if you were just like I'm a race fan. Yeah. Really like those Asians. They're doing killer right now.
Racing,
but the Europeans are catching up.
Automated racing.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Cool. I think. What do you think your guiding principle is? Like, is there a through line for you, or
in general about
yeah,
just in life in general?
yeah.
Um, man, that's hard.
Okay. I
My
think mine is
guiding.
curiosity and figuring out how things work. Like putting things together and like the way things are assembled is like like why does this thing work is kind of like the biggest question I'm always trying to answer in my head.
I think my first thought was the word connection, and there
Okay.
that's very broad, but in my real life job, that's sort of what I do. I'm a connector for resources, but the human connection, conversation, artistic connection, all of those things, I feel like bringing people together has been something that I have enjoyed and focused on my entire life. Like if I had to
That
look at
makes sense, right? Because I mean, if you look at sports, like there's the ins and outs of it, but at the end of the day, it's kind of about community and tribes getting together and rooting for different people and
yeah, I think that's if I, if I had to say what would I consider the most rewarding thing I do, or am a part of, it's that at some point. Um,
somebody
I'm
needs something and you meet there, you're like, I have a guy for you.
yeah, yes,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
that's awesome.
Or let's go find it. One or
Yeah,
the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that's
Mm,
beautiful. I think that makes total sense with what you do,
cool.
and you do a great job at it, man.
I appreciate it. We need to get you back. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you were here in 2025, and
Let's
uh,
chat.
yeah, let's see what we can do to get you on the schedule, and get you back around
Sounds good.
later this year in 26. So,
Let's do it,
uh,
man.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do
Hey,
this, man. I feel like we could go for 2 hours if we need to.
definitely, definitely. We could Rogan if we wanted to.
We could, yes, some of those are marathons. Uh,
Definitely, which is great for a touring musician.
yes,
You
I
can
was.
kill like 3 hours of a drive with Joe's ass if somebody cool's on it. You know?
I feel like I have listened to. You mentioned comedy. I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan. I've listened to all those things. I can't get enough of Kill Tony.
There you go.
All the Rogan, Theo, all those guys.
There you go.
Um, but yeah. Um, let's stay in touch. We'll get you
Absolutely.
back in the room. Safe travels. We appreciate it, Philip. Thank you so much for being on the show. Make sure you follow us on the social media. You can find us at Sunday Songwriters here on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and give us a follow.
But I can't lose sleep on what I cannot change. I chased the lightning, I got soaked in the rain. Danced with my demons till I couldn't see straight. Tried to twist me, but I just won't.